Ron Henry was the.
Everybody.
Now they just lowered it. New state off
Get a day, you have 95.
Still going on.
Well, it's a
So
lot.
there's the old Los Indios guy.
Yeah, it crowds in my crawl. I didn't know that.
Like I said, it was, I thought, what's going on? I just think with the team concept of we're all in this together. Like I said, I'm old school. If it's Loudon Redskins, and it's Loudon Redskins,
No, and
in that sense, I think it all needs to actually go ethnicity, you know, the kids that stood up for Redskins, what good enough for them, they had to win. I'm not Loudon, so it's not.
I told my wife, I said, I could have never had some scenario.
are you?
Well,
Good to see you.
that's what I always tell people, I said, big battle.
No, he's not. And that's part of the reason that's why right here.
But there's so
All
many.
local loud.
There's so many.
Such a pleasure for me.
It's kind of like that shock therapy.
Is it even anything? We don't even got it here on the doctor's side yet.
That's what I told young cousins. I said, you can be fired up if you want to do everything, but I said,
Well, the election's August, so I mean, you don't have a choice.
when you really think you care about
They
it.
run nonpartisan, so it's the August election, that's it. So either way, they're both going that direction. Whoever, I mean, maybe him again.
That's
I don't
why
think
you notice
so.
anymore at college and NBA and NFL, they come out in every color shoe that you could think of. That don't matter. Yeah.
Since he's not here, should I read his questions?
You're taking on the solid waste commission, limited only to the bond,
That's the only thing.
not the other short-term.
I have no opinion about those.
We're not gonna, there's no public comments.
No, this is a budget,
When they go, you'll have opening comments.
Here, deciding to me is the biggest thing.
Tipping fees, service, and the different times they violated the contract.
Pat?
Of course,
The public hearing is on
I'm
the
not,
20th. That's
it's
when
a
you
bad
can
contract
question
now,
it.
and the idea of extending it for what,
It's up to you.
15 more years?
Well, that way I'll know who's voting if you don't care, because I have to take pictures.
Close on.
I know who you are, but I may forget by the time I talk to them.
Depends on what we end up doing.
Sometimes I want you to know, and I can find it.
Tracy, take care of you.
I know.
Apparently not here.
Buddy, you ready? Tracy?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna call the budget meeting to present the budget to the commissioners to order. This is one of the few nights where I get to sit here, turn it over to Tracy and Buddy. So Tracy, you're on.
Thank you, sir.
She didn't hear you. She's going.
Thank you all.
Everything in the budget books is finally finalized, the hours we put in are finished. You notice on page 1, the property tax will remain the same. Sales tax numbers continue to impress. The one on top, the biggest is the cost of living adjustment we've done for employees this year. With the exception of Sheriff's Department, I'll cover it in a moment, they're going to be they're pretty good across the line. Anybody who's been here, excluding a few that got a huge raise when we went to $16 an hour. 1 to 9 years, I think is what we decided on, hopefully. 0 to 9, we get $1,000 cost of living adjustment. 10 to 19 years, we get a $1,500 cost of living adjustment. And 20 plus years, we'll get a $2,000 cost of living adjustment. In addition to the COLA, we're doing bonuses out of our ARPA money that will match the COLA. You get a $1,500 cost of living adjustment, you will also receive a $1,500 bonus. We've discussed, nothing mattered, somewhere around middle of November to 1st of December.
Is that just full-time or part-time as well? Is there a bonus for
Part-time,
part-time?
full-time, and what did we decide on part-time?
No decision on part-time had been made on ARPA at the time of these discussions, but of course, there will be ARPA discussions coming.
And I think as much as we depend on our part-time help, ultimately, I hope that the budget committee will recommend something for that. Jail, or the Sheriff's Department was a little bit different. They have a very standardized rate of pay, so for them, it was $1,500 across the board. The one adjustment we made from just a job description was we increased corrections officers $1,000 additional on top of the $1,000 for their salary. I know a lot of counties around us have raised their corrections officers up in an attempt to come after some of ours. I think this makes us very competitive, extremely competitive, really, when it comes to holding on to our corrections officers. There will be 5 new employees in this budget. 3 of those will be full-time patrol deputies with the Sheriff's Department. Included in this budget will be everything it takes to get them the cruisers, which we are going to get out of ARPA money as well. Hopefully get 2 years out of the ARPA money. We'll get 2 more buys of cruisers out of the ARPA money, a full-time addition in registry of deeds, and another full-time in the accessory property. Any questions?
Board of Education, talk about the Board of Education.
Board of Education, we moved a few pennies around. The Board of Ed will be getting an additional $1.1 million. And now this will be a part of the maintenance of effort, but it also goes above and beyond what the original request. Their original request was $880. We were able to, through the budget process, be able to adjust it around where we're actually going to do 1.1 instead of 80 as requested. This will enable them to do quite a bit. I'm confident. I think the budget committee was confident. Our Board of Ed.
We met their request and exceeded.
Yeah, we went above and beyond for the Board of Ed.
We gave them an extra dollar for ice.
They got an extra little piece of chicken and they're done. So, any questions anybody has, we'll be glad.
If a building program is presented to the commission in the future, our bond rating will still be very positive, and that should not be a burden for our money to go ahead and pursue that at some time and point in the next 2 to 3 years, correct? Hopefully.
We would have to borrow, and it would be a struggle to not have a tax increase with the building program.
Yes.
Of course, we see what's going on with the cities, and that may be something inevitable down the road with the growth
Are
of
you,
the city.
are you talking about schools, David?
Yes, for the building program possibly.
Mayor, I don't know if this is the time where we ask when you guys go back to look at 1 or 2 things. Is that now?
Yeah.
Or is that in there? Okay.
Do it now.
Just with the, I was talking to some people at the Juvenile Justice Center about maybe adding a person in there who is bilingual to help out with a large percentage of the issues that they're having with the juveniles and being able to communicate with their parents and with the students, if that's something that can be looked at or talked about at the next meeting.
And we have, that was a request. It came as a request for extra personnel, and subsequently it was a request for bilingual, and we have discussed it. certainly can discuss it again.
Okay, thanks for, just take that up for me, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
In my years, however many years I've been doing this, is by far the most generous budget I have ever been a part of, across the board. Simply because the county is doing very, very well. So why do we not try to do well by the people that make the county run? I voted against many of the things in the budget committee meeting. Usually I might have been the only one, but in the big picture, this is an incredible budget. And we're not gonna hurt ourselves in the process. It's a lot easier to budget when you've got a couple extra dollars than it is when you're broke all the time. Right, Tracy?
That is correct,
That's
sir.
true.
I think the combination of the cost of living as well as the ARPA bonus, ARPA stipend we're gonna hand out, I think that'll help make our employees happy. But if you look at the additionals, Mike Campbell, he requested 2 last year, he agreed to 1 last year and to readdress this year, and we were able to fill that need. Tracy Loudon came in and made her argument for register of deeds as well. And the sheriff's department, we worked well with them through the process as well. Nobody got everything they wanted, but I think everybody got a little of something they wanted.
So did you say that the ARPA money bonus is going to be exactly what their increase is?
It'll be their COLA, and that's for everybody. Even,
It'll be what?
the ARPA is for everyone, all the full-time employees.
Mayor, can I ask a
How
clarifying
much
question,
is that?
Adam? Sorry. I thought you were done, Kelly, sorry, go ahead.
I was just asking how much that.
It would range, if they've not been here very long, 0 to 9 would be 1,000. Those would only 0 to 9 would be the ones that would be affected by not getting the cost of living if they got a significant raise when we went to 60 and 9.
Didn't we include the full-time, part-time people who are part-time employees? That's
Regular part-time.
regular
Part-time, so to
part-time.
speak.
Yes, they were included in ARPA.
Not yet, we've not even
We
gotten to
discussed
that
we
yet.
were gonna go back and readdress.
Yeah.
Probably next fiscal year.
I'd hate to leave them out. Like I said, if they've been a full-time employee but only working part-time but still yet full-time, they deserve some kind of consideration.
So
I-
the 10 to 19 and the 20-year people are gonna get just a cost of living.
And bonus.
The bonus is the cost of living,
Yes, yeah.
right?
Whatever cost of living adjustment comes,
Either way,
that'll
I'm
mirror.
I think I do. What you have before you that's included in this budget is a cost of living adjustment. It will actually be an increase to their wages. The references to how the ARPA funding will be used, it will be treated more like a bonus. Not an increase to their wages, just a lump sum amount that's still based on this,
Like the 1,500 and the 2,000.
That was my question, Tracy, if it was, because it had been called 2 different things since we've been here,
Yes.
a bonus and a stipend, and they're taxed differently.
Yes, they are.
And so I didn't know what the official, do we?
Yeah, bonus is probably more appropriate.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Bonuses are not
I just want,
TCRS.
Yeah, we'll not go towards the
Affiliated.
TCRS.
Right.
Unless federal government gives us another check next year.
I was just curious for in case somebody asked.
What's the total hit to the ARPA money for these bonuses?
it would be comparable to the cost of living adjustment.
You're talking about dollars and cents,
Yes.
not where, just how many dollars are we spending?
I think it's
So
right
the
at
cost of
300, wasn't
living I'm sorry, the cost of living adjustment in the county general fund, although this includes the sheriff and jail the way they are now, which I guess the ARPA will not be that way, it will be based on longevity.
Yes.
I assume, okay, so I don't have that without the sheriff and jail the way they are now on the cost of living adjustment.
Somewhere around 300, I think.
Well, it's $320,000 to the cost of the county general fund with the cost of living adjustment as it is, with the sheriff and jail receiving $1,500 and $2,000. So there should be a slight difference.
Gonna be less than that,
Be a
then.
little bit less than that,
Okay,
when those jail employees receive it based on longevity.
thank you.
According to the schedule. Sheriff and
The
jail.
contentious issue for the sheriff's department was vehicles We've allocated them money for vehicles. The question is getting the vehicles. That's still an issue across the country.
We bought vehicles every year. Everybody up
Yeah.
there, including the secretary and the maintenance guy, would have a cruiser. We
Maybe
keep
a
buying
couple.
them. I mean,
5 a year.
has there been a year that we've not bought a cruiser in the last 3 or
Well,
4 years?
Typically, it's been the penny included with the capital, included in the capital projects.
Yeah.
Of course,
Of course,
Took
we've
one
been-
out of capital projects
We've been a
last
little,
year.
we've been a little
Money.
crazy with the state and federal ARPA money and buying cars right and left for
Well,
them.
I think we bought the same amount of cars we normally would, am I right with that, Tracy?
You are right.
Yeah.
But we've used state money twice, and we'll hopefully we can use ARPA money depending on how everything gets divvied up, we can use it twice, if not 3 times or more. And that keeps that penny, let's say we use that penny, somewhere besides capital projects.
Well, and you've seen the school's budget, they've done similar stuff with some of the extra money too, with the textbooks and technology as well, to try to save some of the county money.
And hopefully with the Governor Lee's TISA initiative, we'll be a better increase, yeah. I think over the last 8 years, we've worked some pretty good miracles, well, I wouldn't say miracles, you know, with the jail without a tax increase and everything else we've been able to accomplish. I agree with Commissioner Shaver, I think this is a very solid, very giving budget.
Well, and I'll tell you, I just have a couple more meetings. But I remember our first meeting that we had, and a gentleman said that this would be the commission that would tax the most and spend the most money of any commission that's ever been. And
Yeah.
I think that
I do remember
I
that.
think that we have done a very good job over the last 8 years of trying to look out for the taxpayers and provide them with services. And I'm glad that things are growing and there's more money to continue to grow our departments that are needed to serve the community.
Well, I think this year schools were due, you know, we've been able to.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm
not even-
talking
not even
about like
just because you're
sheriff
involved,
and other groups that we fund. I think it's important as our population grows, that our services grow as well.
We've addressed a lot of needs. with
But we've done that without
Without raising taxes.
raising taxes. So I just remembered that. Not,
I'm glad you reminded us of that too.
Any other questions?
thank you guys for the work. Most of it.
For the public information, the public hearing will be Monday, June 20th at 6 o'clock here. So if you have any concerns about the budget, that will be the night. Budget adoption will occur on Monday, June 27th. So those are the 2 important dates as we move down the road for adoption of the budget.
Henry, I'm sorry, could you repeat the first date?
June 20th,
6 o'clock?
6 o'clock.
Need to write that one down.
Yes, sir.
That's the public hearing, right?
Yes.
Public hearing, 6 o'clock.
Okay. All right, no further questions? All right, I'll call the order the special call meeting to discuss the solid waste extension contract in landfill. Tammy, call the roll.
Brewster. Here. Mears.
Here.
Hurley. Tinker.
Here.
Satterfield.
Here.
Whitfield.
Here.
Cullen.
Here.
Duff.
Here.
Shaver.
Here?
Waller.
Present.
Okay, next up is general public comments. Adam, you want to give me the sheet and we'll start down the list?
Like your socks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did a house fall on you?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, first up is Pat Hunter.
My name is Pat Hunter, and I think if it's okay, I'll change the order and address Mr. Anklin's questions, and then I'll submit them to Ms. Swampler. Mr. Anklin could not attend the meeting today, he's out of town, but he requested that his questions and concerns be addressed. Number one, now that Republic Santec is paying out of their funds to close the cells across 41 acres, why do we need to wait until 2027, 2034, 2036, and 2038 to start and finish closing these cells? Number two, at what elevation will these cells be closed? 1093, 1108, or 1125? Where are the D-size drawings located which reflect that elevation? Number three, what revenue will the LCSWDC be given per year between 2022 through 2038? Number four, if provided that revenue is all of it only for LCSWDC's post-closure 80-year obligation. He's talking about the 30 years for closure and 50 years for long-term custodial. Number five, how does approval to expand beyond the 53 acres into the 67 acres occur? If just a simple yes from the LCSWDC, it's a solid waste, allowing Republic Santec to proceed and nothing required from TDEC. And question number six, why does the LCSWDC, solid waste, not require any fee for the 1.2 million cubic yards of soil values at $12 to $15 per cubic yard? So those are his questions. I'll start over again. My name is Pat Hunter, and these are my personal, this is my personal opinion, my viewpoints. I guess I'm concerned about one thing that is heavy on my mind are the tipping fees. The interlocal agreement specifically states that the purpose of the Solid Waste Commission is shall have the power, authority, and responsibility for the raising or lowering of tip fees or other charges that might be assessed for the use of the landfill. In Amendment 2 proposal, more specifically Section 10.3 tipping fees and other charges, it states the contractor shall assess per ton tipping fees to all users of the landfill during the term of this agreement. In the past, and I cited Mr. Bowman, the county attorney, had written a letter in July 9, 2012, a letter to Mayor Herron, where the letter was about the responsibilities of the Solid Waste Commission. And one of the points that was stated was that they are responsible for the raising or lowering of tip fees or other charges that might be assessed for the use of the landfill. What I want to know is how do the stakeholders enforce the interlocal agreement? Because that is the authority of the Solid Waste Commission. This should not be given to the operator. That's one question that I have. The $13 million liability, which was revised from 8 to 13, I contacted TDEC to find out how that changed so dramatically. The answer that I received was the post-closure plan that was submitted by Santec Republic in August of 2021. They reviewed that and as a result came back and changed the numbers from 8 million to 13 million. I feel that we can address a lot of that liability by closing the current dormant cells. A letter was written by Mr. Stevens to their attorney. There was an article the Bacchus emails, they all talk about how to close the dormant cells. What we haven't had is enforcement of the contract. And I feel that if we eliminate or close those cells, we also eliminate our liability. A consultant a number of years ago, back in 2013, said also that the closure and post-closure responsibility and required bond in section 8.21 stated, contractor shall, throughout the contract term, provide at its cost all post-closure for phase one of the landfill, which shall be provided in accordance with the closure, post-closure plan submitted and approved by the state for phase one and all other requirements of the state. To that extent, the state of Tennessee, the permit or applicable law requires during the contract term, the closure or post-closure of any portion of phase 2 and 4 of the landfill or any other phases opened by the contractor. The contractor shall also provide such closure and post-closure in accordance with the applicable closure, post-closure plans submitted and approved by the state for such phases and all other requirements of the state. And increased bonding requirements related to the opening of new phases of the landfill by the contractor during the contract term or resulting from a modification of the existing permit shall be the responsibility of the contractor. We have had Dr. Bacchus suggest how we can do that. It's been ignored. We have consultants that we have paid that have told us that, and yet that liability still hangs on the county and the Solid Waste Commission. Something needs to be done about enforcing our contract before we even think twice about moving on to an extension. If we cannot enforce our current contract, what makes us think that we're going to be able to get them to do anything else? Case in point, at the May meeting, we are handed our packet 5 minutes before the meeting. I cannot imagine county commission acting or doing business in this manner, but we do. In that packet was a customer activity report. I didn't notice it. I'm usually pretty observant, but there was a lot to try to absorb. But in that report, towards the very end, was a new customer. It was, I believe, the city of Madisonville, who had brought some sludge to the landfill. It specifically says in our contract, getting back to enforcement, that the Solid Waste Commission is to authorize that before it comes. Now, you know, it's not a big deal, but in a way it is, because it's called enforcement of the contract. The reason why I think it's important, next to the landfill is Tennessee National. Now, they have to live with the odors from the landfill and the mushroom plant. But I think that we should be proactive in anything that we can do to lessen the odors that come from that landfill. And the reason I think it's important is because Bradley County, who is also managed by Santec Republic, they too have been taking sludge from Cobb County, Georgia, and the residents nearby have been complaining about the odor complaints. And they're going to put a stop to this, or they're going to try to change the amount of waste going there of the sludge, and we really haven't even talked about that. But it's something that we should be thinking about when we have a community like Tennessee National.
You're talking about the the waste that comes out of sewer treatment plants. sludge.
That's what it said on the,
Yeah, that's what, just to make sure that everybody knows what that is. It's
Yeah.
not just a truckload of mud and dirt, it is,
yeah, sludge is.
sludge from the sewer treatment
Right, it
plant.
came from the waste treatment plant. And, matter of fact, it was towards, and I did not catch it. Sludge, municipal, city of Madisonville. So, anyway, that was supposed to be approved before it even came here. There are many more issues when it comes to compliance. I think that if we're going to have a new contract, that we should be doing something like what we did in 2013, where we brought in a third-party independent consultant, and they did a complete financial and compliance review of the landfill as well as the money. And I have a big concern when the landfill, I call it the goose that's laying the golden eggs. Because since 2007, and I keep a spreadsheet, and I put the numbers in every month, the tonnage and the revenue. From 2007 to 2022, in May, that landfill has generated in revenue $51,515,683.61. Of that, the Solid Waste Commission, the host and security fee, it's $4,895,759.25. The reason the host and the security fee are important is that is the money that is going to be set aside for closure and post-closure. And we don't have enough money, and in my opinion, this contract doesn't address the fact that the dollar per ton needs to be changed to where it is matched. It also has the factor of inflation. It doesn't. A couple of years back, when the Solid Waste Commission was looking at another proposal, they were going to increase it to $1.50. I think that needs to be looked at. But one statistic that I looked at when I was looking at the revenue that we generate, that we are given, because it's roughly 91% for Republic, 9% for the solid waste. I found that, and I did it two ways, fiscal year, because we operate in fiscal year, Republic operates in a calendar year. But I looked at the revenue that we generated, and then I looked at our disposal fees. Of the three stakeholders, the disposal fees, and I used one of the reports that they submit every month, a tonnage report. In one fiscal year, where we brought in, whatever I said, 296, the three stakeholders, and we're the owners of the landfill, we expended $398,298. Now, that came out of another pocket. It came out of our county coffers, our city coffers. But it doesn't really matter, because we're talking about a landfill that we own. You know, if we're truly concerned about the liability issue, I think one commissioner has talked about selling it. If it's bringing in $3.2 million a year on the average, it is an asset. One thing that we could look at in selling the landfill, we could hire a very solid contract attorney and get a similar deal like Rutherford County and Murfreesboro. They pay $0 to take the residential waste to the Republic-owned private landfill, it's called, the Middle Point landfill. So there's other options that I think we should be considering. One other concern that I have about the proposed increases or the increase in the gate rate, we're talking about going from $28.48 to $45. At one of the meetings, recent meetings, I asked the landfill manager, how many customers do we have that are paying gate rate? He didn't know. Well, I decided I would go ahead and look it up, spend a considerable amount of my time doing this, but the supermajority of our customers on this customer activity report pay gate rate. So we haven't really talked about what's gonna happen to the customers that are paying gate rate when the increase goes from $28.50 to $45. I just think that's a huge increase. And for a county that is so conservative like Loudon County, I feel that this is just unacceptable. So those are some of the concerns that I have. Here's the passage 5.14 with regards to the municipal waste that came. It says, contractor is also prohibited from accepting sanitary sewage sludge at the landfill unless previously authorized by the commission under terms and conditions prescribed by the commission. Now, why should a solid waste commissioner have to look this up when this should be brought to our attention before it comes? Like I said, I have concerns about this contract. I feel that there are so many issues with the current contract that we have to look at, that this is not the time to move forward with a new contract. Thank you.
Pat, I have a question or two for you. You are currently a active, full-fledged member of the Loudon County Solid Waste Commission.
I am, and I'm gonna have to disclose, I was the only no vote on this contract.
And like I said, it's been brought to my attention, and I think by you, maybe somebody else, but it's what I just want you to clear up. As a member of the Solid Waste Commission, have you been deprived or had to go through document requests to get copies of pertinent minutes or actions by the Solid Waste Committee that should be furnished to you? Have they?
Yes, I do that on a regular basis. That's the only way I'm going to get the records.
Why do they feel that being on the commission that you're not entitled to that automatically?
I don't know, I can't answer that. All I know is that as a solid waste commissioner, I feel that as a representative of the taxpayers, that I should be well informed when I vote. And if I feel that I'm handicapped, as I am most of the times, I can't do a good job.
And-
Like this,
And
I should have caught it.
and if your statement's true about the time, the amount of time from when you receive the minute or the minutes and agenda for the meeting, minutes or a few hours before, that strikes me as not, first of all, denying any member of the Solid Waste Commission full access to any minutes or paperwork that the committee is working on or privy to is a slap in the face of transparency. Shame on them. That should never happen. That'd be like me asking the mayor, can I have a copy of what we talked about last night, and then tell me I need to go get a records request. I don't like that. I just want to clear that up. And like I said, this will be the 8th year on county commission, and I've already learned more about solid waste than I had intended it to. But I can say this, like I said, you've been consistent in what you brought. And like I said, it is a problem. You know, we have done an adequate amount of hand wringing when we say, who negotiated this contract? Why did they give away the authority on tipping fees? Well, I'll do that. And, you know, we get, well, yeah, that was bad. That was our fault. We shouldn't have done that. which means nothing to me, but like I said, I have a problem with them withholding information from any member of that and waiting almost till meeting time. And like you said, I don't know how you expect members of the commission to do a full faith job of doing that and not doing that. Those are some things, just that, and then
Can I address that for just a second?
not yet.
Fine,
Not yet.
address it at all.
I'm not finished. Those are just indicative of some of the things through the years, like I said, of failing to do this or failing to do that and breach of this. And it seems like I said, the Sandtech and Republic don't seem to be bothered by that being brought to their attention. And like I said, the only thing in all this is just, it's a bad contract now. And I don't understand for the life of me why we want to extend a bad contract for infinity and beyond, as Buzz Lightyear would say. You know, when we actually, this is an opportunity to do something about it. But anyhow, I just want to ask those few questions like that.
I was
I would like to
I was not
address, I would
present.
like to address the
We're not
comment.
finished.
I was-
We're not
No,
finished.
you were finished.
I
I'm
was
listening to
not-
her
He is
response.
giving me the sign to speak. Thank you,
Hold
the
on.
chairman is.
I oppose that because my response has not been heard.
I would like to clarify, I was not present when a vote was taken to make sure that the minutes, the draft minutes, were handed out at the meeting itself, 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before the meeting. I was not present for that vote. I would not have voted for that. That came about because Mr. Anklin made a records request to see draft minutes. He had a legal opinion from the Office of Open Records that anyone can get off the website, and it said that minutes in draft form are public records. He came several times wanting to see those minutes. I saw nothing wrong with that. I offered as a way to try to get this resolved that the minutes be submitted to the mayor's office, and then anyone who wanted to see them could request that. I mean, the planning office, the county commission, everyone makes their draft minutes available to the public.
Has anybody besides you asked for that?
Mr. Ang.
I mean, anybody on the solid, is anybody on the solid waste commission asked that?
I don't know, but after the vote was taken, it's just a matter of routine now that they are handed out before the meeting, 5 minutes. It's unacceptable. We can't look at the minutes and recall what happened a month earlier. That's
Okay.
ridiculous.
Can I ask you something, Ms. Hunter? Did we not have that situation taken care of and that we were posting those minutes and we were getting those minutes much earlier to the Solid Waste Commission? Is that correct?
Prior to the vote, you were getting them to the commission,
Yes.
and Mr. Anklin wanted to see them when the commission received them. I saw nothing wrong with that. I mean, draft minutes are available to the public, but they were not to him, and as a result.
They were available to the public, yes, but not on his time frame is what he was wanting. He was wanting that time frame to be exactly when we received them.
No, what he was asking to see them at the same time that the solid waste commission received them.
And we were receiving them when? A week before the meeting?
Sometimes the Monday before the Tuesday meeting, sometimes on Friday. I would have to look.
I think that we straightened that out. Am I correct? Back there, everyone, were we not receiving them the week before?
I think that the action that was taken because of Mr. Anklin requesting to see the draft minutes, in my opinion, was too drastic. Because it also penalized not only Mr. Anklin, who has a right to see draft minutes when they become available, he had a right to see those. What it's done, in my opinion, is now it penalizes members of the Solid Waste Commission who do not have the information either, except at the time of the meeting, 5 minutes before the meeting, and that is unacceptable. At the very least, we should have the packets and the draft minutes when you have them, a few days ahead of time, so we can study the issues, and we can ask intelligent questions, and we can come prepared to speak intelligently.
Let's just make sure that we have it correct, that we were doing that until Mr. Anklin came and he was being very demanding, saying that we
I don't
were
think he
not.
was demanding, he was just asking to see the draft minutes.
Well,
What's the
that
big
is
deal?
he was being demanding about having those draft minutes the moment the whole commission got draft minutes. Trying
And
very
we should
hard
make
to
the
be
records
very
available
transparent.
As soon as we can.
We could not make him happy about the situation at all. We had tried to fix it on 2 different occasions. So therefore, the commission they brought it out, took a vote, and that's how it passed to get them a few minutes before. It
was
had been
stressful.
that way for several years.
Like I said, it was
I'm
stressful.
not concerned about Rich Anklin getting the minutes. I don't know about your minutes. I do know that it strikes me as very peculiar that any member of the body would have to go to Anita to request documents from a committee that they serve on. That strikes me as strange, and of course Anita doesn't even have them. She has to send the request to Mr. Stevens, and I think Mr. Stevens then decides whether or not they get sent out the way I understand it, so
Well, this was supposed to be addressed a while back to make sure that all records are kept at the county office building, not in an office in Knoxville or at a residential home. That was supposed to be addressed and it never was. But I think that being transparent and having the information available is a good thing. Thank you.
Pat, you gave,
Ms. Hunter, I have a question.
Yes,
How many members are on the board of the Solid Waste Commission?
7.
there are 7 members.
7 members, and you said that you all voted on this contract, and what was the outcome of that?
The contract, it was to accept it as is and to send it to the stakeholders. And I can't remember, I was the only no vote.
So 5 to 6 to 1?
If everybody was present, I can't remember if everybody was present.
I have a question, Pat. You mentioned we send Republic $398,298. How much do we get back from their revenue on that 91-9 split?
On this past fiscal year, which we just ended, let me get figures here. I wait till the audit comes out to check my numbers against the auditors.
I'm just asking.
I think it was 3.2, which was the gross revenue, and we received roughly 292,000.
So we got 292 and we gave them 398 and we own the landfill.
Yes, that's the 2 cities and the county, and looking at the tonnage report that shows each entity and how much tonnage they bring.
But currently, you said since they've operated the landfill, they have brought in $50-something million.
Over 51 million.
And how much has the county received of the 51 million?
Less than about 9% of that.
So that would be what, 4 million?
It is,
10 would be
So
5.
right now, they're saying 13 million to close it, if we had to close it right now, and we have $4 million. Did anybody see the,
yeah, the revenue base, what Santec calls the revenue base, that is the money that is generated from the tipping fees, is $51,515,683.61. Of that, the Solid Waste Commission has received $4,895,759.25. This fiscal year that just ended, the revenue was exactly $3,206,107.24. The host and security fee was $292,852.50. The audit said the host and security fees were $292,800. $852. So,
Well, at that rate, do you think we'll ever, if, when it comes time to close that
no, not at a dollar.
there would be money there? Does the Solid Waste Commission, when they receive that money, does it just go in a bank and we receive whatever interest
The
the bank?
trustee handles the money.
We don't invest any of it
The
at all.
trustee does invest. the
He
money.
investment, so,
Yes,
so we're trying to make some money off of what we get, right?
right.
But the
Trustee
4
does
million you
invest.
say that we've got now, that includes any investment returns on it?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And it's actually, since we also spend money, we're actually up to about $5 million. But, you know, I think this contract is, offering, 5.5, with regards to the fees or percentage that they're talking about changing. And, we're currently at 3.96.
What fees does the Solid Waste Commission, as far as operating fees, I know the money comes in, but,
Expenses.
expenses that the Solid Waste Commission is responsible for?
Well, we have legal fees and we have commission fees, our stipends. I'm trying to think of others. We have an audit that just came out. I'll be glad to send it to you.
But we have,
Dr. Bogus's
that,
report
I mean,
on all and everything that he does, those are
but,
fees.
the members receive a stipend of the commission.
Right,
How much are we paying the attorney every month to come to your meetings?
$2,500 a month.
Does he have anything, does he keep the minutes? Does he take down minutes? Does he make reports for the next meeting?
I don't know. I'd have to make a records request to find out.
Other than,
I see him writing, so I think he does. He does take notes.
and he does have input as far as making suggestions for what the Solid Waste Committee.
Yeah, he's our legal counsel, so he
I
does.
know he's there.
he's
I
there.
don't know, do we have another commission in the county that has a full-time attorney for every meeting?
I don't even want Bob here tonight.
I just want to say,
I heard that, and I appreciate that.
so we pay them.
We like you,
We
Bob.
pay the stipends out for the attorney and the members, and then whatever operating costs as far as like office supplies and those kinds of things. Anything else that comes out of that, like travel expense, if anybody's required to travel or do anything?
If there's a yearly seminar and members attend, I don't know that anybody's attended recently, but it is in the audit, and I'll be glad to send it to you. I think it's on the controller's website.
I have it right here.
It's also at the
Their,
county website too.
Operating expenses, $30,000 for legal, $292. This is the last audit, $292 for legal notices. Accounting and auditing, I'm sure is the big one, $9,200. For landfill operations, some kind of insurance, $4,398. And then the trustees commission's $1,809 for a total expenditure of $274. I'm sorry, I'm including the other ones. Whatever that was right there, that's their total expenditures in the last audit.
I do know one thing, when we receive our letter from Republic that tells us the host and security fee, I did a computation, right now they're paying us a host fee percentage of 3.96. And the difference between 3.96 and 5.5, just with 1 month, the increase would be roughly $5,272.40. So I think we're gonna need a lot more than that. If we're talking about closure and post-closure and 13 million. And even if if Republic decides, or the contract is approved, it is cheaper for Republic to carry a bond at $25,000 or $50,000 than it is to close the cells. Ultimately, closing the cells is what we want done, because that removes the liability.
Do they, and this is just conjecture, I'm sure I'd probably overruled if this was a court, but do you think that they are not closing the sales you think it's to save them money? They don't want to lay out the money to close the sale?
Well,
Is there any other reason out there that they wouldn't want to close the sale that's full?
we hired Dr. Bacchus to look at the closure and post-closure plan. His recommendations were to close the cells at a more accelerated rate. He recognized that there were dormant cells that had not been used in years and needed to be closed. We should have at the very least examined and gone back and looked at that closure and post-closure that they submitted and modified it.
Has
Just
the-
like I said,
has
he
the-
told me that as a result of that closure, post-closure plan, that we did not go back and check and go with Dr. Bacchus's plan.
Does the
That is
solid,
what resulted in the 13 million.
does the Solid Waste Commission ever try to prod or poke Santec Republic into honoring the terms of the contract and doing what they've agreed to do and close the sales and so forth? Does it, I mean, have they made an effort to at least twist an arm a little bit to get them to follow through?
Well, there was a article in the News Herald, Santec accused of contract breach. The attorney wrote a letter. Santec has been accused of not filling cells to completion to avoid closure costs. There are currently 13 cells open in the landfill. Many of the cells have been dormant for years. Our lawyer wrote to them, and they wrote back, and the cells are still open, so.
Okay.
And I have extra copies of this.
Thank you, Pat.
Thanks, Pat. Pandora.
Okay.
More of the same from Pandora. I looked at the original Santec contract, I'm sorry, pardon me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Mayor Buddy, Director Blair's gone, Pandora, Breland, Loudon County. The original Santec contract has a very interesting clause in it, paragraph about a prohibition against collusion. So the contractor represents and agrees that it has not conveyed or offered or promised directly or indirectly to any member of the commission, employee, agent, or representative of the commission, or any person representing or purporting to represent the commission, or any family member, including spouse, parents, or children of the foregoing group, any remuneration, property, service, advantage, or other consideration or benefit of value, to improperly influence or obtain the award of this agreement to contractor. Contractor further argues that it shall not employ as an employee, agent, consultant, or independent contractor any member of such group for a period of 5 years from the commencement date. Contractor's violation of this requirement shall constitute a material breach of this agreement, in which event the commission may terminate this agreement upon notice to the contractor. So, any questions about that? We've got an attorney here. Does anybody have any questions about what's contained there? This was in the original contract. This is the contract that's going to be extended. So right in the middle of the multi-million-dollar negotiations for the contract extension with Republic Santec, guess what gets exposed? The News Herald exposed that Republic Santec cut a $500 check to the chairman of the Solid Waste Commission for her re-election, even though she was not even running. What the heck? This paragraph I read to you says that type of act is prohibited, and doing that would constitute a material breach, and the commission can terminate the agreement upon notice. That's how bad that action was. So these are the actors we're working with on this contract. They have it in their contract not to do it. They go ahead and try and do it. Okay? Well, of course, this stinks to high heaven, and I'm looking to you as our elected officials and authority that we trust to do the right thing, because I feel you're looking the other way on this. This is the junk you get out of New Jersey. This type of stuff. Where they try and buy people with checks and this type of thing. So I would like to know, has anyone else on this commission received any kind of money or remuneration from this crowd? Anybody on this commission received anything? It seems they singled out the chairman of the Solid Waste Commission as their lead negotiator. And she has not stepped down, just from the appearance of the taint on this contract. She's not stepped down. You've not asked her to step down. To me, the smell of the whole thing, even though she could be as innocent, and I hope she is, that, you know, just for the appearances, in the middle of this negotiation, I think she shouldn't be part of it. Now, that's my opinion. Okay. We have 5 years to negotiate with these people or somebody else, or decide to sell it. We have all sorts of options that we have to dive into and find out what will work best for us. To hit the accelerator now, knowing that this contract has, as it's currently written, has not enough terms and conditions that will protect us from extending the bad agreement we originally had. Now, I think, I'm asking this commission to write a cease and desist letter to the members of the Solid Waste Commission to stop negotiating this contract. First of all, you've already seen how these people have tried to reach out to the chairman of the committee, and somebody needs to stop this. So no matter how bad it is for our county, Kelly mentioned, or Chairman Brewster mentioned the last time in the workshop, she wants it done in 30 to 90 days. And that's probably because she wants to clean it up before she leaves office. But she won't be here to live with her own cooking. When this contract's bad, all of you who won your election or are staying or what have you, you'll be living with it. We'll be living with it. I have several critical comments about the contract and its extension. But if we address these problems, and other ones, Ms. Hunter pointed out, Mr. Anklin wrote about, we could negotiate it correctly for us, but not with a gun at our head to have it done in 30 days, because significant parts of this contract need to be changed to protect us. For example, this idea they're going to toss us 5.5% of gross revenue. That's not nearly enough money. They have paid us so little out of the gross revenues that if we had to close this landfill at the natural end of this contract, the natural term in 2027 when this thing ends, we'd have to cough up $6.8 million. And that assumes we're taking a revenue stream, just like we're doing now, all the way to 2027. Meanwhile, it's not just going to be our garbage that we're going to have to deal with, it's garbage they have now imported from everywhere. This is going to come out of our pockets. This is how badly this was negotiated. They starved us in the revenue department. They starved us. 5.5% isn't going to cut it. Have they done any of the state required interim closings? No. Ms. Hunter brought up, we have cells that have been dormant there for years. Why are they allowed to disregard what's in the contract, but we have to stand by and live like good citizens with our agreements in the contract? In a contract extension, if you do it with these people or with anybody else, there better be penalties in there. There better be penalties for not closing these cells that need to be closed. And basically, in this next contract, whoever we would do it with, I believe we need to lay down the law. Only one open cell at a time. That way they can't spread it all out over 41 acres, or in this case, they want to bump it up to 53 and eventually to 67. And play the game of, we haven't hit the required elevation, so we don't have to close the cell. One cell open at a time, gentlemen. Fill that cell up, and then you're bound to close it. You must close it. That's not in the new contract. None of the whips and beatings that they deserve on how to run this landfill correctly are included in the contract extension. So we allowed them to set the tipping fees, and we're stuck wringing our hands because that was pretty much giving away our only superpower. The power to make sure we had enough revenue coming to us comes to the power of being able to set the tipping fees. And Ms. Hunter pointed out, I don't think Loudon County should have authorized, I think the other counties had to agree to give them the tipping fees. We just put it in our contract, they could handle it. Of course, they want that because they recognize that as the superpower. So you never give up something like that for nothing. In negotiations, you never give up something for nothing. Another thing you know about negotiations is don't be a pilgrim. What does that mean? Don't settle early. Do not be in such a rush to get a contract negotiated that you settle for these little bumps in revenue when you need gigantic bumps in revenue. Post-closure. Boy, this is slick. This new contract says the post-closure all lands on us. Okay? They're taking 91% of the revenue, and they're going to stick us with the post-closure that could go out as far as 80 years. Okay? And we're going to do that on what? Hell, we can't even close the thing if it comes time to close in 2027. We cannot agree to that term. We absolutely can't agree to do that. Again, we're not just going to try and close our own garbage dump. It's everybody else's trash they've hauled in there and made billions on to do it. If we allow them to use a total of 53 acres as they're requesting in their contract extension, then they have to agree in writing to be solely responsible to pay the closure on the 53 acres, or they'll eventually come for permission to 67, of course, because landfills are precious. There's not a lot of landfills. They're harder to get approved than shooting ranges. And so we have something valuable here, and they, of course, being good business people, they're going to want to bump that up as long as they can keep the tonnage going in there. But our document has to say, wherever they have put waste in our landfill, they will be responsible to pay for its closure and its post-closure. Because like I said, they'll spread it out everywhere and maybe walk away at the end of the deal. So, a bond. We have a bond that's supposed to cover us for 41 acres. Well, they're coming for 53 now. They need to say in their contract extension, if they get one, the bond has to cover 53 acres. And if it's projected up to 67 acres, because we can't unreasonably withhold their ability to get 67 acres if they get the state to approve it, that bond has to be pumped up to cover that land as well. Now, either Santec agrees to assume the post-closure financial obligations in our negotiations, I hope we talked to them about this, or they need to pay us the present value of the remaining post-closure costs for all the 67 acres, whatever it is at the time it closes, and the final closure of the landfill in 2038. They're doing that for Bradley County. This is not something that they've never done. They've agreed to do that for Bradley County. Our negotiators need to get that for us. Again, I bring the point up of forcing them into one cell open at a time. That will take care of their weaseliness about not filling these cells up and abandoning them and what have you. Now, my take is they think we're crazy because we're not laying down the law on these interim closures, and yet we're actually trying to rush a contract extension with them. They must think we're feeble or nuts. I just don't know. So this is going to be more acreage under this contract extension to fill up with more counties' garbage, for them to make millions, for them to try and stick us for the post-closure. Okay? And the longer they delay, if we do get stuck with closing this big, massive landfill, the more expensive it's going to be to close. Here's, for example, something that cost $1 in the year 2000 now costs $1.68. I agree with Ms. Hunter. They have to start shutting these cells now. They have to show good faith. They have to step up and perform before I would answer the telephone if they called on this contract extension. I want to see their performance, specifically closing these cells. I want to see them step up on what they're going to give us for revenue. They're going to starve us again. The little 5.5% isn't anywhere near what we need. Bradley County gets a deal with them. They get 10% of the revenues after a certain level of tonnage comes in. Hey, come on. If you can do that for them, you can do it for us. I personally would like to see you consider selling this landfill. It's worth millions and millions of dollars. And it will relieve us of this liability that they so craftily try and stick us with. So tonight, my request is cease and desist on these contract negotiations. We have a taint of a company who we're negotiating with, who tried to give money to the chairman of this committee, who cut a check. She says she didn't get it, I'll take her word for it, but it's them that jumped up and did this against their own contract. And I want this contract to be held until we have negotiators capable of building into the terms and conditions things that we need to protect us environmentally and financially, because you are going to be getting into a dance with these people that will take you to 2038. And look at how badly we've been beaten in only 2022. We have 5 more years of this beating with these short revenues to us. That's my request. Thank you.
Thank you, Pandora. Steve Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor. I'm Steve Fields, I'm a member of the Solid Waste Board, and I'm speaking as a member of the board, not for the board. And I just wanted to throw a few points out that I think are worth discussion or consideration. One of the things that I think is really important as you're looking at things like this, when you take a stand against something, and I understand that there's a lot of animosity about this particular contract. There's a lot in it that I don't like. There's a lot of it that needs to be repaired. But when you're against something, it's easy to take that position. It's a lot harder to take a position where you're for something. So to the extent that you are against a particular item, I would encourage you to think about, well, what can you be for in that regard? The other thing I'll say is that the purpose of these negotiations has been to address the shortcomings in the current contract. That's why we've been talking to Santec, now Santec Republic. And we've been having these discussions with them probably since 2010, 2011 is when this discussion started about the contract situation. So it's been going on for years. And for the most part, that Santec was not really interested in negotiating. They had a change in their management, and they decided that maybe it's worth negotiating. And, we've been having negotiations, more fruitful negotiations since then. Again, the purpose of this contract amendment is to address the shortcomings in the current contract. Part of this negotiations that we've been going through a number of years ago, I stepped back from being part of the negotiation committee and asked Larry to step in. And part of my rationale for me personally of taking that move was that at some level I recognized for at least 3 members of the community I was a distraction. And so I wanted to remove myself from that, or be a distraction over what I thought were fruitful discussions with Santec about adjusting the contract. And Larry took over the negotiations and got us much further along. Again, there was a big change in the management from Santec, where they were a lot more open to discussions and these changes. And then when Chairman Brewster came on, she finished the negotiations and got into the state that we're currently in. A couple things that I would like to remind everybody is that under this amended contract, if we pass it and if it gets enforced, is that Santec Republic is responsible for closure, period. So all this discussion, the 13 million is an estimate of what the closure is. I guarantee you, it will be a different number. That's an estimate, but Santec Republic is responsible for closure of the landfill if we're successful in completing this contract amendment. one of the things that the commission and a few members of the board have also been concerned about is the idea of having a bond. Where right now, Buddy gets a letter from the comptroller every year about how much money the county has to pledge for future tax revenue should TDEC need to come in and close the landfill. And it's getting to be a pretty big number currently. And if part of this negotiation was to have Santec, or Santec Republic, do a bond to cover that financial assurance. And so that relieves the county from that obligation. One of the things that we have recently worked in conjunction with Santec Republic is a reduction in the service area. Current contract allows Santec Republic to bring in garbage from 150 miles. The amended agreement reduces that to 75 miles.
Can I ask you a question about that? And I've always been intrigued by that part of the contract about bringing in solid waste and how would Santec Republic, how do you guarantee, when they bring it in that, where it actually, how far away it actually is?
So when you show up at the landfill with a truckload of garbage, you have to check in with the scale house. Scale house operator asks that person, where does this garbage come from? And that gets tracked, it's part of the TDEC requirements it's part of what they call the origin report. So the garbage that comes in is monitored, and again, the people that are providing that information to the scale house operators, they can tell them something different, but relying on.
That brings me to the next question about something like that. I find it hard to operate on the honor system when you're at this level of negotiations, but I was gonna ask the same, what you just said, when they pull in there, they could say, they could have actually come from, northern Alabama, but you say, well, I came from Athens.
Yeah.
And that's what they put in there. This truckload of garbage came from Athens, and it could have come from anywhere. There's no cross-checking that. You just have to take their word for it.
Yeah,
And that's a TDEC requirement.
it's a TDEC, it's a TDEC.
I know, I'm just
But
saying.
it's based on the honor system.
But really, there's no assurance in that. I mean, they could bring garbage from anywhere and, and there's not anything in it as far as tonnage that they're allowed. I mean, is there a limit on how much they can bring in a day or a week's time?
There's daily averages that we have in the contract that specifies an upper limit.
So actually, where it comes from is on the honor system of whoever brings it in. So we just, whatever the truck driver says, we have to take their word for it. On how far away they bring it in.
That's a true
Okay.
statement.
And of course, I understand that Santec Republic, it's a business to them. We're a community. It's, it means different. They're in it to make as many dollars as they possibly can, and they don't send lambs in to negotiate. They go in, they know what they want, and they're willing to do whatever they need to do, because in the bottom line is, this is a money-making business.
They absolutely are
That's all it is, and I said, and this thing is definitely a cash cow. So if we didn't renew the contract, how many people would be lined up to, hey, they're making 50 million, they're making millions of dollars a year. And it brings back to what Van said the last time, which I think was one of his cogent remarks, was, negotiating from a point of power. Don't renew it. Then if they want it back, if they want to continue to do it, then we're in a position to say, we want the tipping fees back, and we want this, and this, and, kind of get something right now, like Pandora said, we don't have any leverage at all.
We have very little leverage.
We
That's
have
very
no
true.
leverage at all. They have millions of dollars worth of lawyers, and we have one.
Well, we got Bob Bowman.
Oh, yeah.
But Bob's
He's worth
our,
millions to us.
he's not the soft. Yeah, and like I said, when we agreed to the original contract that we're on now, we agreed to things that we're never gonna get back from them. That's the way it is now.
So again,
Realistically,
if I can say, respond to one of your
I'm sorry,
points.
yeah.
When we bid out this current contract, we were expecting a number of proposals from a number of different, Republic then was supposed to bid on it, Waste Connections was supposed to bid on it. The major solid waste players in our region were supposed to bid on it. We received one bid. Same day.
And you could, and like I said, it could happen that way again, but Republic now, has their status moved up in the country at the time? They were what, number 3?
I don't
In the
know.
country somewhere?
They were probably number 2. I don't think they were number 3.
And they've bought up so many of these that they don't have enough cash flow to repair their trucks and pick up the garbage.
They're number
They
one.
clearly have some operational
They're
problems.
what?
They're number one now.
Number 1 now with a bullet.
In
If I may-
I have one quick question.
Yes, sir.
We talk about the negotiating power we're gonna have in 5 years. And that was my question. How much negotiating power are we gonna have in 5 years? How many companies that are out there today that can manage this contract?
Well, so one of my points further on is that if we do nothing, and we have this potential liability of $13 million, if we're going out to the market and saying, oh, we have this landfill to operate, but oh, by the way, nothing's been closed, and so you're gonna have to assume that $13 million liability, I'm sure somebody will bid on it.
They'll go out and buy them a bond. They'll go out and get them a bond like this company says they're gonna do.
Well, I think that, but the point is that if you were putting the contract out for bid, to have a $13 million liability as part of the thing that they were buying,
But that would
it would
be,
give
that would
you a
be,
very,
that would be
strong-
minimal in regard to how many millions they're bringing in, and it's only gonna go. I just like Blount County I'm sure theirs is bigger than that's been in operation, but that's a 3-entity enterprise: Alcoa, City of Alcoa, City of Maryville, and the County of Blount County. That's all 3. It's kind of like this one, but the City of Alcoa operates it.
right?
I don't know what, anyhow, it can be done, and it can be done to the benefit of the people here, oh, we're getting somebody in to come in to take most of our money to operate a landfill. And like I said, you'd think that even the county, even our schools and government buildings will get a break, but we pay through just like everybody else does. And like I said, I understand it's about making money.
Well, the school should get the stakeholder rate, which is, in the region, is a fairly competitive rate.
Okay, now explain that stakeholder and gate rates.
So the gate rate is currently $28.50,
And they're going up to 45.
for the gate rate.
And
We
now,
had, in terms of gate rates within our region, that's par with many of the landfills.
it could be.
But if you wanted to take your garbage to Waste Management in Anderson County, Chestnut Ridge landfill, last time I checked with them, their gate rate was $100 a ton.
But the thing about this one is that we've been motoring along here at 20-something dollars and so forth. And it'd be different if, we had to go up $3 or $4 this year, and we're gonna go up and it had been incremental, kind of like putting the frog in the pot.
I agree that it's a steep jump.
I mean,
agree.
that's, almost have knocked the air out of you, Lane, and you're thinking, they're doubling what we're paying right now, and it's not been incremental and taking it easy, where you can kind of absorb it as you go along, but I mean, bam, that's.
Coach, I agree with you, that it's a steep jump to take it one fell swoop.
And I appreciate you guys being a punching bag to some of this. Of course, you gotta take responsibility for the situation we're in now, and I know a lot of it, like I said, we have absolutely zero leverage right now with the contract that we have. And-
I think it's more than zero, but not a lot of leverage.
But we're not, but with the one that you want to extend, we're not, I mean, we're gonna be here at their mercy. They'll do pretty much what they wanna do.
Well, but again, the part of the difference is that in terms of like the closure and the phase closure, the schedule for closure, that was not in the current contract. There are very specific provisions in the contract mod to close different phases of the landfill based on certain trigger events.
Let me ask you another question. Like I said, I just love talking about garbage.
And I think you're gonna get a better opportunity, aren't you, coming up here in the next few months?
The amount of money, like I said, that's been, they have generated, what, $50 million, you
51
said?
million plus
Is that gross or net?
gross.
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 Gross. I wonder what their net is, do you know?
I don't have a clue.
I could guess it'd be around 10% or so.
It'd take a court order from a federal judge to get that, wouldn't it?
If I may continue.
Okay, go ahead.
So again, under this new agreement, we're getting a new fee structure, 23.58 for the stakeholders, day rate's gonna go up to 45. However, part of the provision is that there's gonna be a floor for Santec's internal rate of $26 a ton. So the stakeholders will get a preferred rate, better than even what Santec Republic will pay every day.
But they can still dictate the rate to different customers, say.
Minimum 26.
Huh?
Minimum of 26, that's the floor.
That's the floor, so if everybody else is paying, I mean, they can still say, XYZ company, we're gonna let you bring your stuff in for $26. WYV over here, yours is gonna have to be 52. I mean, they have that discretion, they can set it for
Well, the
whatever they want.
gate rate is the gate rate.
Mhm.
So things normally don't get higher than the gate rate unless you're bringing in something special.
Okay, well, that makes, okay.
One of the things that's really important about the contract mod, the current permitted elevation of the landfill is 1,108 feet.
That's it.
That's the current permitted elevation.
That's the latest legal,
That's the current permitted elevation. The current elevation of the landfill is roughly 1,070.
that's what I was saying, no, first number, that's the limit,
That's the limit on the current.
but we've not got there yet.
Correct. Now, because we're interested in not aggravating our neighbors, we had done some fairly extensive studies with viewshed analysis and things like that, and we determined that an elevation of 1,093 feet would be an elevation that would allow the landfill to get to a reasonable height, but not be visible from Tennessee National.
Just
So
pick up-
if we do nothing, chances are really good that the landfill is gonna be built to that full 1108 elevation because there's not enough airspace in the landfill that's permitted to fulfill the current contract to 2027. So they either are gonna have to step back the amount of garbage coming in,
Mhm.
or they're gonna have to do an expansion of the landfill.
Okay, I've heard different numbers tonight. Currently, they legally have possession of and are operating how many acres of that landfill?
Around 40, I'm thinking.
40. And in the negotiations, they're asking to increase that to
50, well, they're 53 is what I think 53 is what the contract called up.
they want that, so from
And
41 to 53.
67 is what we were looking to have permitted. And the reason why we opted for allowing it to operate in 53 but permit for 67 was so that way at the end of that contract in 2038 or before, if they're bringing a lot more garbage, it would allow the then people on the solid waste commission an opportunity to do whatever they're gonna do next. If they want to stay in the landfill business, they've got permitted airspace, it won't be built out, but it's there to use more gracefully if you wanted to stay in the landfill business.
Well, I just have another
Steve, would
question
you-
too, and I hate to
Could you
keep,
explain what permitted means to them? Please explain what why you mean we permitted 67.
So the permit that we currently have with TDEC was established in probably 1989 or something like that. And again, that's what we're currently operating in. The design was put in place in the late 80s and approved in the 80s. The cost for closure and post-closure was built into that initial permit, if you would, and those are the figures that TDEC used to use for calculating the number that Buddy would get every year. was based on what those 1989 figures were, or whatever it was, to calculate the closure value. And when TDEC had the new reset, if you would, about providing closure plans, that's when they redid the closure obligation based on current standards, not some 1989 standard.
I have another, just clarification for me, because I've seen a couple of different printed versions on the dirt that they are obtaining to use in the landfill. Now, did we give them possession of the land that they're excavating the dirt from to use in the
Not
landfill?
yet, no.
But
It's
we
in the
gave them,
extension though. That's in the extension.
Allows them to use that land.
but we gave them the dirt.
We have, well, they're paying us extra money to utilize the dirt.
Now, when you say extra money, is that,
Is that difference in percentage, from the, was it the?
3.95 to 5.5.
Right.
So they're not paying for the dirt.
Well, but over the life of the extended contract, that revenue should more or less pay for the land that we acquired for solid waste purposes.
so if we weren't providing the dirt there at the landfill and they had to go get it somewhere else, what would they be paying for?
I
Don't have any
don't
idea.
have a good idea.
But like I said, they're getting a good deal on the dirt they're digging up to use into the landfill
Well, I
right
mean,
now.
they're using the dirt that's landfill now to do their operations.
That's what I'm saying is, this area they're removing soil from, do they own that?
They don't own
I
any.
mean, is it part, all right, is it under their operational
Yes,
purview?
yes.
So they can do with it whatever they can do?
Yeah.
So
They
they
have
can
to
go
use it on our landfill, they can't export it.
Yeah.
They can't
Okay.
take our soil to
Well,
another.
okay.
But at the end, we're gonna be stuck with a big hole, right?
No.
It's not it's not a hole. Now, Richard Anklin would like to portray a giant hole when he started talking about that, but I don't wanna diss Richard, I like Richard, so I'll just leave that alone. They have a plan that's part of the major mod that shows the areas where they're gonna be borrowing soil. And those plans to use that soil, need to be approved by the solid waste board.
And it
It's not
has
gonna
to
be a
be
hole.
vegetated.
Well, they're taking a
So
bunch
it
of
has to
dirt
be-
and moving it to cover the landfill, right?
Yeah, but I mean,
So
they're
then
clearly
they're
gonna
coming
clear
from
it.
somewhere. So like, what's it gonna look like?
It's gonna, the trees
Be a
are
hole
gonna
with
be cut
grass.
down. I mean, it's gonna, initially, it's gonna look pretty bad.
It's gonna be a depression in the ground? Like, what's
I
it
don't know,
gonna
they're gonna be peeling, 6 or 8 feet off of everything eventually. But there, again, in the plan, or in the amendment, there is a phased soil borrow plan that shows what areas they're gonna be removing soil and the approximate timeframes. But those are all in conjunction with them closing parts of the landfill. That's what they're using the soil for, is for the closure.
Well, what would
And the
be,
soil.
this is a big what if, and hopefully it would never happen. But, you never know what economy will do and what business do. Say, Republic decided to file for bankruptcy, packed up their trucks and left, just like it is now. What would be the county's would we just be stuck with it?
Right now, there's $1 million bond in place.
Yeah. I'm
So
just,
if they left today, we'd have that $1 million to work
million,
with.
that won't even close the sale. will
Well, that goes back to what Buddy signs, taxpayers have to pay the bill.
That's
Back
the
up.
old.
So to your question,
That's on the
if
old
we had
contract.
the amended contract and they had a performance bond, or if they bonded the closure, post-closure care, it had the financial responsibility that had to pass Buster with TDEC, and it also has to pass Buster with the board. If they were to close the doors and walk away, we'd have the bond to fall back on, which covers that financial assurance.
It's kind of like home insurance. It never fully pays for replacement, does it?
But it's what's required from TDEC, and again, the intent was to relieve the mayor from getting that letter and probably having near cardiac arrest every year when he just open it up and look at it.
Just high blood pressure.
I've sat
There was a
here.
garbage company that went bankrupt in this state. I'll see what I can find on that to give it to you.
Just wondering, I just.
Steve, I've listened to it for tonight and for a long time. I see no reason to rush into this contract the way we're doing it. The advantage to me is on Republic's side, not the taxpayers. We have 5 years, what, 2027? I think you put the heat on Sandtech and make them comply with what you want, not what they want.
But the challenge, I understand your sentiment, and my comment is I wish we had that power. But in the current contract, in the TDEC rules and regulations, the operators of the landfills don't have to close cells until they attain final elevation. And as long as they build that cell to 1 foot below final elevation, they don't have to close it.
And I also live in the village, as you well know, and I see some of my friends from the village here. So in case you want to know, they don't call it Republic, it's Repulsive Trash Service.
I understand.
And my phone has melted down. They still haven't got the garbage picked up. Their billing's a mess. People on auto pay, they get it deducted from their checking account and they get hit for a $5 late fee. They were supposed to get credits, they don't get credits. They haven't picked up the garbage down in Malacqua and several other places. Help me out, my fellow neighbors here. I'm telling you, they are a disaster. And this is a major corporation. I'd have gotten fired if I ran my region the way they run their landfill.
But I think,
So
I
I would say that in terms of their hauling business, I can't disagree with you at all whatsoever. I understand your frustration. I get it. Now, their landfill operations, you know, they do a reasonable job. Before Republic took over Sandtech, I called the folks at TDEC in Nashville that work solid waste and said, hey, what kind of an operator is Republic? Because I wasn't that familiar with them. And the people that I talked to from TDEC in Nashville said, you know, overall, they're a pretty good operator. They're not perfect, but they overall, you know, TDEC said they're as good as bad as anybody. Sometimes they have good days, some days they have bad days. You guys, for what they're providing for their hauling company, I think it's horrible.
And I'll tell you this, I've been in the village 20 years. Waste Connection, which was the prior company, prior to them, was 100% better than Sandtech. And I'm just telling you, there's systemic problems with the company if they can't handle business 101. That's my opinion.
But
I wouldn't sign.
all businesses are suffering. I mean.
I understand,
I'm
but-
on the road into plants, factories across this country every day. And businesses are struggling. They're struggling with employees, they're struggling with help. I got 2 drivers out with COVID right now. I mean, everybody is struggling. And that's just a part of the world today. Now they have to get that addressed and you gotta try to work out things, but I think you could take the time to sit down and negotiate that. Ford suffered many years ago and had to get federal bailouts from the country.
They never took a bailout.
They never took a bailout.
But things happen in business and the economy is horrible. I mean, it's just crazy.
And I can tell you, William C. Ford, the old man that owned the Detroit Lions, stood in a meeting in front of all the management employees and said, I will take this company lower before I take the Fed's money. And they put everything on the blue oval, $23 billion.
One of the things that's different between the landfill operation versus the hauling operation. The hauling operation is governed by Department of Transportation rules. the landfill operations covered by TDEC rules.
But now,
And,
how can
and
that be
I understand
separate?
that I understand it's a single company.
It's a brand image.
I agree, I don't disagree with you, but the landfill operations get inspected every month by TDEC.
Never get this.
And, overall, they do a reasonable job of operating a landfill. Yes, they're making money.
They're making money at the taxpayer's expense.
Well, but again,
Why can't those
the
contracts be
point of the
Huh?
contract negotiations was to address the shortcomings of this current contract. The biggest one is the cost of closure and having
I think you're-
Sandtech Republic.
I think you're focused on the closure, and they're taking it to the cleaners on the day-to-day operation,
But why can't
period.
those contracts be separated?
They are separated. The hauling contract, has nothing
It
to
has
do
nothing to do with the
running the
landfill.
landfill.
It's just so, it's.
Because they're named the same.
It's, the company owns it. And like I said, anything that happens is reflection on the company's ability to operate, whether it's picking up garbage.
Whether we extend the
Run the-
contract or don't extend the contract, it's not gonna get Telco Village's hauling trash problem taken care of.
I understand that. That's up to the POA to take it up with Sandtech or Republic. But the issue comes down to, it's a systemic problem. You got 5 years to work it out. I would not rush into signing a damn thing for them, period.
Chairman, I appreciate your counsel and, there are some aspects to doing nothing, essentially letting the old contract ride out, particularly the elevation potential change in terms of building out the landfill to the current permit elevation and how that's gonna impact our neighbors at Tennessee National is a concern of mine.
Steve, I brought this up at the last meeting, and I would ask this with any, and I appreciate what the solid waste is doing. But do you feel that Tennessee National have they been communication that they know what's going on? Because I can see definitely with the growth and the build out at Tennessee National in the next 5 to 8 years, it's gonna be a tremendous revenue stream for both the city and the county.
We have had Ty Ross
Yeah,
has
the time
been
crunch is at our meetings.
as at every one of our meetings,
Yeah.
and
He's
he's
probably the
representing,
best representative.
he's representing Tennessee National and the city.
So, yeah, I don't know what you all are gonna recommend or however you're gonna handle this deal. I certainly hear a lot of the sentiment, you all are too happy with not happy with the current arrangement. And it sounds like many of you are not happy over this proposed contract model, even though it does address many of these issues that you have problems with the original contract under the original contract.
Steve, will you address one thing too? If we continue and ride the contract out for 5 years, okay, that not only puts those cells that are close to level, in the phase closure on the extension, we have all of those leveled out in a different way. But if we ride this contract out for 5 years, of course that elevation grows. Tell them what the consequences of riding out that 5 years is. TDEC says if you ride that out 5 years and what that's gonna do to the cells.
Well, I mean, at some point in time, in terms of building out the landfill to its current permitted footprint, and also building it to the maximum elevation, that's where you come into the potential closure obligation of 13 million. Now, if TDEC changes their rules, where they will be more aggressive about having the operators close these dormant cells, they're moving in that direction. The Sandtech Republic may elect to go ahead and close some of those cells without us having to coerce them. But again, the contract mod has language very specific about the closure and what triggers closing certain cells.
But
Mr.
right
Chairman,
now-
20 minutes till 8.
But right
Uh,
now,
can we-
just a second.
I don't know, we've been at this a long time, the
But
same
if we
stuff.
do not finish if we do not go on with the extension, we can't force, TDEC is not going to force them to close those cells.
Not unless they hit final elevation.
According to the contract, they will. According to the existing contract, they have to close the sales.
If they hit their.
By the end of the
elevation.
contract, they have to close the sales according to the existing
If they
contract.
hit their final elevation.
They can't leave till they close the contracts. It's theirs in the contract from 2007.
No.
Mr. Chairman, I want to do mine.
Go ahead.
This is getting long, it's getting way long. I never wanted to know anything about garbage, I didn't want to talk about garbage, but it's just kind of forced on us. I agree with every speaker that's been at the podium tonight, from Pat Hunter to Mr. Fields to Pandora. There are some good things in this contract extension. There are. I like the whole idea of them picking up the bond, taking off Buddy. I don't think we have any more assurances in the extension of them closing the sales in 2036 than we have in Santec closing in 2025. The contract's just full of wiggle room on everything. It's a horribly written contract. Like I say, we have some good things. There's no way this extension should be passed forward as it is right now. The tipping fees. We're gonna jump tipping fees 80% overnight. They should have been doing this incrementally by the contract regulation. They should have been doing it incrementally since 2007. They chose not to. Not our fault. They should have been doing it that way. But to hit everybody for that kind of a tip and fee increase all at once, I've heard several people talk about the Rutherford County and the Bradley counties. If they can get such good contracts, why are we stuck with such a bad one with Republic? And I'm not addressing this question to you. I'm just saying my parts out loud where I'm at. The things that I have a problem with with this contract extension, 2007 contract is horrible. Everybody agrees. But why extend a horrible contract and get a couple of little nuggets out of it? That's all we're getting.
I don't know, 13, if they're assuming
Hang on.
closure and they close it.
Let me finish out here. The money problem for me is probably the biggest thing there is. We own the Fraslin landfill. The stakeholders, when I say we, as I refer to we, the stakeholders own the landfill.
Yeah.
We're paying more to put our garbage in the landfill than the Solid Waste Commission gets back out of it. That's insanity. I mean, I don't even know how that works.
Not with the extension.
It's the same with the extension, Kelly. It's
we-
going to
the
5.5%,
tipping
you're still getting no money
The
from it.
tipping fees are the lowest ones of the stakeholders too.
But it's still all going up, and we have no control. They may decide to go to $50, $60, $70. Who knows? I don't know what they'll do.
It specifies that it's gonna go to for the gate rate to go to $45.
Okay.
And they can.
Let's
do
move
the
on from
CPI.
that. Let's move on from all that. I'm not wanting to get bogged down right here.
Yeah.
I'm there. If the contract extension is going forward from when we leave here tonight, if you all still think that the good idea to vote on this contract before we get some of these other things discussed, we've got a serious problem. You've worked hard, you've done good, you've got a couple of good little things out of it, but way more wrong than there is good with it. You're talking about the garbage coming from 75 miles out. What if there's a transfer station at 68 miles? Can transfer station garbage be brought in?
The intent.
I know what the intent is, but we already know they work these contracts down to the last decimal. And if they can have a multi-ton, million-ton transfer station 68 miles within the zone, and they can bring as much trash as they want to transfer, then bring the transfer to here, you haven't accomplished anything. I'm not asking questions. I'm telling you where my problems are. The whole thing with poor old Pat over here having to go to the mayor's office to get information from solid waste. That's Mr. Stevens.
That's not accurate.
That's not accurate.
I want to address that.
Hold it. Sit down and let me finish, and you can address when I get done. I've been in the office when she walks in and asks for it. So don't tell me it's not accurate. I've heard it with my own ears. That's
She
one
did that
thing.
voluntarily. No one ever told her to submit a document request to the
Kevin,
county.
if you're gonna speak, come to the.
Just hang on. The idea of giving the dirt away. How much did we pay for the land we're digging the dirt out of?
It's not $1 billion.
About $1 million. And now we're going to give it away.
No, the increase in fee will reimburse us about
Then
$1
we,
million.
so we don't get any more, we're getting dirt money out of the increase, but we don't get any more that's making us any more money on the other end of it. Like just for our security fee and our host fees. That's coming in as a host fee, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're not getting the dirt fee, this is a hose fee.
And there's gonna be an increase in the host fee.
Right, but that's increasing the host fee to help us offset our cost for closure and post-closure.
Yeah, but
Right.
again, if, under the agreement, they're paying for closure, right?
I don't know if they
That's
are.
what it says they are.
The current contract says Santec will, and you're telling me they don't have to. Okay, just stick with me. You've got the new contract, you've got the red line portion of the contract that we've had 10 or 20 copies of. It's good, the little highlight points. Where's the contract itself, the current existing contract with the red lines on it? That's what we need to see. I can't refer back to section this, section this, section this. Give me a contract with the red line changes on it throughout the contract. Much easier to see.
I agree with that, Dan, by the way.
Do what?
I'd agree with that.
Oh, absolutely. Anybody knows bullet point sheets are worthless. The closing cost in last year's audit went from right at 7 million to 13 million. Not sure what changed. You and I had this conversation.
That was based on the letter, the comptroller's letter to Mayor Betty.
Last audit, all I know, the last audit went, the audit notated in there that the closure costs had gone from 7 million something to 13 million something.
RTX letter.
For the increase that the comptroller sent to Betty.
If there's anything that tells me something's out of whack here at this meeting and 2 weeks ago, there's not a human here from Republic. They've got the most riding on this whole thing right here, and there's not a one of them shows up. They either don't care, or they're fully confident they're gonna get what they want. I don't know the answer to that one, but if I had this much riding on the line like they do, I'd have me about 6 people sitting back here saying what a great idea this is for us to do this. We've established very clearly that Republic is not a company to be trusted. Their reputation is awful. What they tried to do with Kelly was terrible, and I want to be very clear with this. I believe Kelly 100% when she says she didn't ask for it, she didn't take money. I believe her without a doubt that that's what happened. But the fact that these people were willing to take a shot at this, and the contract, as she read, and I've got it right here in front of me, flatly says, you do it, you're out of here. And they still did it. They still did it. I can't apply the reasons. We all know there's newspaper articles all over the United States where they've done exactly the same sort of thing. We've read them. So their reputation, as far as I'm concerned, is horrendous. If in 2027 we weren't even doing business with Republic, I think everybody would be better off. Stakeholders and all would be better off. This has been a disaster from the easiest thing of picking up the trash to trying to negotiate to get things, and they're going to give us, good gracious, out of the goodness of their heart, they're going to jump our percentage from 3.92 to 5.5.
And they're paying an estimated 13 million to close the landfill.
Maybe they are. I'm telling you, I've got your contract in my hand right here that says, the current contract that says they're going to close the sales. I know that's Mr. Stevens' interpretation. I don't know who else it is, but I can read it with my own eyes. It says they have to close the sales, is what it says. So I don't know why we're even talking about we're on the hook for it. I guess they walk off and say, we're just not going to do it. I don't know what you do in a case like that. But I'm confident, as somebody, I don't even remember who said it, that landfill is a gold mine. I mean, they're precious. There's just no more of them to be had. And I'll promise you there'll never be another one built in Loudon County, at least as long as I'm breathing. So it's a hot commodity. In 2023, because the contract says we have to start negotiating in 2 years. Within 2 years of the end of the contract, they have to be informed if we're not going to do business with it. So in 2 years or sooner, we can send a letter and say, hey guys, we're fixing to let this thing go. We need bids. We need other people to come in and do this. Tell me there won't be more people coming. Republic will be the only one. Waste Management will be here. Waste Connections will be here. And no telling who else will be here. Will they be better than Republic? I don't know. Will we be able to negotiate better? Absolutely, when we've got competition. I am totally, speaking for me, I'm totally against this contract extension going through till we have a better grip, till I have a better grip on why we can't get more out of the landfill that we own than having to turn around and give it to somebody else. That's where I'm at with it, so.
Got the message. Thank
All
you.
right. So what are y'all gonna do? If we're opposed to it, do you still go ahead and do it? Do you not do it? I mean, I think you're hearing from several of us, we have concerns.
I certainly get that you have concerns. I can't speak for the board, and that's something the board's.
Well, you have a 7-member board, 4 members can pass the contract tomorrow if they run a public notice.
Yeah.
So if our input doesn't matter, and this board wants to do whatever they want to, we got this good point, this good point, and this good point, but you got 68 bad points. So is the board gonna pass this contract? I'm asking the board members, what are y'all gonna do after what we've heard tonight?
I'd put the brakes on.
You're not a board member, I'm asking them.
I can't
I
speak
think
for
you'll
the
find that answer out at our board meeting.
Well, I think then we need to take some kind of action to assure it doesn't happen.
That's
Well,
up to
goods
you.
are authority, Van.
Say it again?
The interlocal agreement give us the authority to do that.
Come forward.
I
so the
understand,
people
I
can see
understand
it.
their local, I've read it
Larry,
word for
comment.
word.
I have a question for Bob real quick about the interlocal agreement. If it says that the Solid Waste Commission shall set the tipping fees, why aren't they setting the tipping fees? Why are they giving that authority to Republic?
That I don't know. Clearly, the interlocal agreement says that. Yes.
Then how can they do it?
Well,
The interlocal agreement also gives them the authority to do policies, procedures, to do things. You could easily weave that into the old contract. They were given grant-wide authority to do many things they want to do. You could argue all day, well, it says here we have the authority to do, you know, contracts, procedures, whatever, that they could have chosen to have done that. So I
But even
don't
if
have
our
a
local
problem with
agreement
that.
says they shall set the tipping fees, then the Solid Waste Commission should be setting the tipping fees.
It flatly says.
I don't know why that was delegated in the first contract. That
Can they legally delegate it?
If I could address that real.
I'm asking our attorney real quick.
Well, he doesn't know.
I'm not aware of any reason why they can't,
Why they can?
why they cannot.
Because it says they shall set the tipping fee, not Santec.
Well, there's nothing in there that says they can't delegate their powers. I mean, again, that
I
contract,
agree with that.
that contract was negotiated
Yeah, I don't.
well before any of us were. Well, Van may have been on the county commission when that contract was
Were you,
signed.
Van?
I don't believe so.
I was on during the negotiations, was gone when it was actually adopted, so I didn't have anything to do with this.
Go ahead, sir.
My name's Larry Jamison. I am a member of the Solid Waste Commission. This contract negotiations that we've been on for an extension was to better the county, the residents of the county. In all fairness, the contract, as you well pointed out, man, is a very bad contract. But this commission has done due diligence to work it every time we meet. There is some folks that have undermined the commission, planted seeds that is not an absolute exact. I'm not gonna point fingers. I'm not going to argue the point, and I agree, we need leverage, but as you asked a while ago, this commission, the county commissioners have an opinion. We're gonna value that opinion as the solid waste. We're gonna also value the other two stakeholders' opinion. We've asked the same questions. One of the things, when I come on this commission, was asked in the county commission back then, was had nothing to do with the 2007 contract. We wasn't even informed till after it was done. Same way with me. I got on the commission, I had to learn and dig. I had to go visit the landfill to talk about the landfill and the requirements that TDEC puts on us. You gotta be active with it. So Kelly, Steve Fields, several other of the commissioners have been to the landfill, and we feel that we had done the best that we could do for this extension. I understand, Mr. Cullen, about the power of having the power of negotiations about the Tellico Village. I understand that. But in simple math is two different things. We get a monthly report of how, what is it, TDEC comes and does their inspection. We don't have a problem at the landfill, according to them. The worst problem that we've had in the past few years was mud on the road. I'm a resident, I live down there, I travel it, I see it, I make phone calls. I field phone calls from citizens that's down there. Not Tellico, but Tennessee National, come to several of our meetings, voice their concerns, and then Mr. Ross has been so kind as to be present at most of our meetings and reporting back to them. And I think we had some Telco villagers that was at our meeting, that they held up a paper of the bullet points and said, this is good. Yous have done a good job of trying to negotiate this. So again, I value your opinion. I want to do the right thing. It's up to you. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Everybody. But selling the landfill, I will fight tooth and nail to keep from doing that. I think Adam knows that.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why, you get the landfill out from under, solid waste, you could have in years another Poplar Springs that you're dealing with. Very much so. We have controls right now, limited controls, but we do have some controls. So I just wanted to pass that on, and I hope you give our attorney the opportunity to rebuttal some of this statements that's been made.
Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question? Just, so after hearing everything that we talked about tonight, do you think that, we can go back in and try a little more, or wait, do we have to rush through it right now, or?
In my opinion, I've been working on this extension for over 5 years.
I know it's been a long time.
So, I will say this much, there's nothing stopping me from going back. If we vote as a commission tomorrow, or our next meeting, we vote to cease the negotiations, reopen negotiations, that's fine with me. That's fine with me. Do we think we'll get, not right now, we won't get, a better deal? Because I have been president of government negotiations, I'll be honest with you, we locked horns. It was a short meeting, 5 minutes, they got up and walked out to get where we're at today. So, as time dwindles down to 2027, there is power, more power.
That's 5 years.
We got more power, but that's 5 more years. It's 5 more years. And the problem that I really see is we still got the county on the hook. The residents of Loudon County are on the hook at a projected $13 million deficit. So, again, go ahead.
So, on that, and I'm not a solid waste expert.
What?
But can you not retake, if I can give my son the power to drive my car, I can also take that away. If you've given them the ability to set the tipping fees, can you not just take that back and start to work on that so that we can get some of that?
To answer that question, I think what you're trying to ask is, yes, that could be a negotiation. That could enter back into negotiations.
You can't just make it so.
But right now, there is nothing stopping Sandec, whether we move forward or not, for raising the rates.
Well, there is, because it has to be tied to the CPI index annually, July 1.
Well, one thing
That's what's in the contract.
I hear that, but if you, and help me on this, Kevin, if you go back to 2008, since they have done the CPA increase.
It doesn't say they can go back to, it says if they want to raise it in your contract that we have right now, it says they have to do it annually on the CPI index.
It's always annually.
And July 1st is when they have to do it. It doesn't say.
We're talking about, can I answer a few
up.
specifics here?
Please come up.
We're talking about a couple different things. There is the stakeholder rate, which is subject to a CPI adjustment for the contract, and the gate rate, which is subject to a CPI adjustment for the contract. Sandtech has adjusted the gate rate per CPI each and every year since the inception of the contract. So there's no question about that.
It hasn't gone up.
Yes, it has. It has
$2,
gone up to $28.
$3?
CPI adjustment, it has crept up and gone up to $28.
From what? 2007,
I
2008?
don't know what the initial contract was.
But
They've applied.
I think that's.
But here's the situation. The gate rate is somewhat of a misnomer, because there are very, very few customers that pay the gate rate. if you all have a
You may
problem,
want to explain the difference of what you're talking about, because if you've not lived in this contract for the last week, a
understand,
lot of us won't understand the gate rate, tipping fee, and special fee.
and let me do that if I may. The gate rate is if anybody just comes in off the street, doesn't have any relationship, contractual agreement with the landfill operator, that's what they would pay. It's the standard gate rate, which is adjusted by CPI each and every year. It's currently $28 and some change. The stakeholder rate is the negotiated rate that the stakeholders pay. When any of the stakeholders bring in their municipal, county solid waste, that's the rate they pay. Pursuant to the contract, that is subject to a CPI adjustment. Now, with respect to the stakeholder rate only, during the last 4 years, Santec, as a gesture of good faith, has not increased that rate. They had an opportunity to increase that rate, and if they had, the rate to the stakeholders would be $26.90. However, the stakeholders are currently paying $21. So they, as a gesture of good faith, while we've been negotiating this for the last 5 years, have never increased the stakeholder rate. So that's another component. The biggest issue that we have and what led to the shortfall, frankly, is the discount rate. Santec had the opportunity under the 2007 contract without a floor for any rate. And so what they were doing was taking waste in from a lot of the local industry at an extremely low rate, $10 and $12. And so what that did was use up airspace of the landfill, but didn't generate enough revenue to pay for the closure of that space.
Is that what's called special rate?
Yes, it is.
Okay, how much special rate we talking?
I'm not sure I understand.
How much of that tonnage is coming in under special rate?
Not near as much as it was, because a lot of the giant industry is no longer coming to Kimberly-Clark, for example, doesn't come to the landfill. That used to be 30% of the waste at $10 to $12 a ton. Doesn't happen now. Now our average tipping fee has significantly increased in the last 4 to 5 years. And so that also increases our security fee. The security fee is not just $1. I know a lot of people say it's $1, it needs to be increased.
5%.
It's the greater of $1 or 5%. In old days, in about 2015, we used to get $1. Now we get significantly more than $1 because our average gate rate has gone up. Now, if your heartburn is the $45 or $46 gate rate, that's a very easily negotiated provision. If that's a source of heartburn, I can tell you that. The reason Santec wanted, or Republic wanted that, was to make the gate rate appear more consistent with what other landfills are paying around the region. But I can assure you that any commercial company or any repeat user of the landfill has a separate negotiated rate below the gate rate. So to the extent you say we don't like the way that looks, raising the sticker price, I look at it akin to a car. There's a sticker price and there's what everybody really pays. Now I know it's changed.
Nowadays it's higher.
I understand.
Now it's 10 grand over
I understand.
MSRP.
But very few people pay the gate rate. Very few customers. Those are only those single-time customers that may come in on a special job or something. But nearly every customer is on a contract. But what's so important about this amendment is that it sets a floor. It does two things. One, it says that no rate will ever be lower than the stakeholders. Because right now, Santec is getting a lower intercompany rate than the stakeholders are receiving. So that was a source of concern.
And
So
we
people
even found
complained
Rowan
about
County
that.
was getting lower.
We were getting pushback from that, and so we said, that's a point we're gonna fix in this. So now their proposed amendment says no rate will ever be lower than the stakeholders. The stakeholders' rate is $21,
Going to what?
going to $23. Could have been $26.90, but they're splitting the difference because they didn't apply the CPI. Now, what
Now,
also
is
is
the CPI tied to that moving forward, or is it sitting at 23?
It would be tied to that moving forward. But what also is important is that through this proposed amendment, they're saying no rate, period, regardless of who comes in and how much volume they're offering, will be below $26. And so what that means is they're not going to give away the stakeholders' airspace like they used to. So when you talk about control, all of a sudden, we used to have very little, and this proposed amendment Doesn't give you 100%, but darn near does give you that control.
Is that $26 tied to CPI as well?
Yes.
Hey, Kevin, can I ask a question, and this
Yeah.
predates us? The interlocal agreement does say that the commission should set the tipping fee, so why is it conveyed to Santac in the contract and even,
Well,
I don't know the answer to that.
The only distinction was the commission had always set the tipping fee for the stakeholders by contract, and has always set the gate rate by contract. The only opportunity that Santac had in the 2007 contract, and again, I don't advocate for it because it's what got us in a hole to begin with, but it let them negotiate rates for special waste. So when Kimberly Clark says, I have, 1,000 tons a month of waste, they negotiate down to $12. And that's what started the problem. And so this amendment would give much more control over all of the rates.
Where does Kimberly Clark take their trash now?
They're totally green.
Totally agree. Yeah, I know.
That was.
Tate Lyle saying.
Tate Lyle done the same thing.
You used to see the monthly reports and it was dominated by Kimberly Clark and Tate Lyle. Now there's zero waste from them.
Who's the largest now?
Waste management, I think. That's one issue. You've addressed one issue, still have a problem with where it's at.
Understand?
Last year, the last audit, somebody talked about this earlier. The stakeholders, when I say we, the stakeholders, paid $390,000 to take our municipal waste into the landfill. We got back, you all, the Solid Waste Commission, got $292,000 back. Next year, we're gonna pay a whole lot more than $390-something thousand. So we're gonna pay more money to it, and we're picking up 1.6% more revenue. And that's, according to who I'm talking to, that's either for our host fee or it's paying for the dirt. Either way, we're not getting any more money. We're gonna go deeper in the hole next year than we did this year. Now, that's what I see the whole thing about is the money. We own it, and what are we, the stakeholders are probably 13%, 12% of the waste going in. We're one of the smaller customers. We're down the line quite a ways as to where the customers are, yet we own it, and we're paying that much money to use our own landfill, and we get, here, have you a quarter, get you a cold drink.
It's a fair point. And, I think, we look at, and I think this is what Chairman Field was former Chairman Field, trying to allude to, was that if you have specific issues, and that's a very specific issue, it would be helpful to have that feedback so that we can discuss it and discuss it with Republic. Because, just saying yes or no doesn't really give us any more leverage, it doesn't give it any more detail for the negotiation, and it doesn't give us a path forward. But if there are very specific parameters that you or anybody or any stakeholder or anybody in this room feels that they would like to raise, as opposed for advocating for and against, just say, hey, what about the stakeholder rate? Could we address that? That would be helpful feedback.
I think one thing that could have helped this commission back when Republic bought out Santac, and I don't know that much about, but it was in negotiations, but basically when Republic bought it out, I think it would have been very helpful if the commission at that time could have met with the solid waste, a representative from Republic. And we could have understand, but I think that they were in negotiations and other things with DOJ. I don't recall what all was going on. But let me ask you this, and once again, thank you for what y'all are doing, but would this be possible, when you have your meetings with the other two, making a list of concerns, giving it to the Solid Waste Commission, and then giving them, say, 30 to 60 days, and coming back so everybody can hopefully be on the same page?
That's what we're trying to do.
That's why we're here.
That's
why we're here.
That's exactly why we're here. The comments were made that the county commission didn't know nothing about.
Yes.
And I vowed back then, when I started
You did.
negotiating, I was going to make sure that all three stakeholders had an input in this. Yes, you give us the authority to vote, but I think every commissioner on the solid waste will vote their conscience.
Well, when you negotiate, you've got to have something the other party wants,
Yes.
okay? Right now, they've got everything they want. We don't have anything.
We got
We've got dirt, but we're
Free
getting
dirt.
nowhere.
Well,
I mean, when you look at it, I mean, the big thing, the big thing, it's the nickel and dime stuff, fine, but I'm looking at, we negotiated such a disparity in sharing profit. We're getting so little and they're getting the majority of it. I mean, just, to
If I
me,
may address what I don't think is nickel and dime, is what the reality is of the finances here. We see the annual report each and every year. The audit report has reflected and will continue to reflect $5, $6, $7 million shortfall, depending on estimates. Now, what's even more troubling is the audit report doesn't show that $13.1 million. That'll be reflected next year. So the audit report's gonna look $6 to $7 million worse. What this amendment does is says the county will have zero liability for closure of this landfill. And that the stakeholders in the county will continue to receive 10.5% of the revenue. So at projections, with this extension, you would go from potentially on one hand having a $13.1 million shortfall to, on the other hand, not only having zero liability from the county, but potentially $6 to $8 million in surplus, which could be used for any beneficial purpose for any of the stakeholders.
so they're going to be responsible for the ultimate closing of it, so why is the big deal? Why not close it now? Why not close some of the sales that are closable
Because
now?
they don't have to under the contract.
Well,
That's the
Not-
reality.
not to the elevation.
Like I said, you gotta have, we don't, like.
Well, let me just state my take. I don't vote on anything, but my take is, if we let this run to 2027, and we have a $13.1 million shortfall, we're not gonna have a whole lot of negotiation.
What is it clears up, 8.2 says they're responsible for compliance and all costs associated with interim closure requirements under the solid waste law, so like.
That's the problem. The word interim closure doesn't exist in the solid waste laws. It's a misnomer.
I don't even know what interim means.
No one does. You can go to TDEC and no one knows what interim closure means because there is no TDEC regulation requiring an interim closure. And so the only closure that TDEC requires by regulation, and part of this is a problem of TDEC's lack of teeth. The only TDEC regulation that is in place for closure says closure must be completed following final elevation. And so what that allows Republic and every operator in the state of Tennessee to do is fill it up to a foot or two below
And that's what they've done.
final elevation and let it settle for as long as they want. And TDEC doesn't have teeth in its regulation.
But they have to close it before the end of the contract.
That's not what that says. If they don't fill to
It doesn't
final
say
elevation,
elevation right
it
here.
says
It
interim
says they have
closure.
to close it.
It says interim closure. And so if it never gets there,
I'll define interim closure for you. Interim closure means before the contract runs out. How about that?
I wish TDEC would agree.
I don't care what TDEC says, that's how I define it.
Well, unfortunately, TDEC governs.
TDEC governs this.
Here's
And then
one
we're
thing I wish.
responsible.
Here's one thing I wish the contract would do, is force them to start closing. Get to elevation and close.
And it does.
Like starting tomorrow.
It does. What it says,
Starting
to a point earlier.
tomorrow, go to cell 1, fill it up, close it. Cell 2, fill it up, close it. So we're done with them.
What it says.
We're done with them.
Now,
is that
there's
it-
one
it-
problem with that. In building a landfill, you can't take one cell and fill it up and cap it off.
But what it says is you can't open a new land, and this is a point that was brought up, but is actually what's in this amendment. You can't move to the next. You can't open a new cell until you close the cell previously. And so what this contract says is you have to get TDEC permission to open a new cell.
Major modification.
No, not to open a new cell is not a major modification.
I mean,
This
right
is
here,
for-
top, closure, post-closure, in the contract extension, and it says the contractor shall close approximately 12.9 acres by 2025,
Correct.
11.6 acres by 2034.
Mhm.
That's the next time they've got to close
No,
one, so
but-
there's gonna be a lot of open
But
sales
what
between now and
what
then.
it says, the phase closure plan has a layout of multiple
I've
cells.
got it.
And what it said, what this amendment says, is for them to open up a new cell, they have to get a permit from TDEC. And what it says is they have to then close the previous cell within 180 days after getting the permit. So essentially what that does is forces their hand to they can't continue to open new cells without closing the cells beforehand.
And this is new regulations from TDEC.
And as you read through the extension, there is, in my opinion, and I'm not a contract expert, there's as much wiggle room in the new contract extension on closing as there is in the old contract for closing. There's different ways in here they'll be able to chump us out till 2037, 2038.
I don't agree with that,
I
but
know you
I
don't.
have welcomed the commissioners, the stakeholders, and their council to provide any feedback they'd like about the particular language, and I still welcome that.
It shows them that they have to close certain cells.
It shows in the current contract they have to close the sales, and I'm being told it doesn't. It doesn't.
They have to close certain number of cells.
By
according to-
2035.
It has a phase closure plan. You go to closure area 1, closure area 2, closure area 3, closure area 4. You can't open a new cell until you close the previous cell.
So how many cells are open right now?
Probably 7, 8.
And how many are closed? How many have they
Of the
closed?
current landfill,
0 since the beginning.
So let's say how many cells are open total?
Now, there's one thing, the old cell, the original cell
Yeah.
is closed
Yeah.
under
but
the
that
old
was,
permit.
that was before 2007, so
Yes.
that's kind of immaterial.
That is,
They've not closed anything since
Right.
2007. And TDEC will not force them to close
So
anything.
how many are covered in dirt, almost ready to close?
well, they're back on the hill now, which we left them 27 feet, I believe it is, to get the final elevation. There is
They could have closed at least 2 cells.
most of the time, from what we've been told, it can take up to 2 years of settlement. Get within a foot, seal it off, let it settle for 2 years. They may gain 2 feet out of it and come back and fill it up to the final elevation.
Go with the car lot explanation. That's kind of like saying they'll quit smoking when it warms up. That's trash. I mean, and I still say, you and I'll disagree. The language in the extension is no stronger than the language in the original contract when it comes to closing sales. You know there's not. They're going to develop by the contractor a phased closure plan and implement the timeline will be developed by the contractor.
The phase closure plan is attached to the amendment as proposed.
Proposed. Have they done, will they do it?
Already have. They've
There's
already
no-
submitted it to you.
No. Will they actually do the closing part?
Well, that's the problem. The issue is, once they submit it to TDEC, it's a requirement. That's the distinction. Right now, we've got no phase closure plan, and TDEC has no teeth to require closure.
I think you got a mess. I think a bad contract and the
We got a bunch
contract
of
I understand.
as bad as the contract.
Can I ask
That's
can I
why.
ask a question? Are you meeting with any of the other bodies?
Yes.
Okay. And so there have been lots of things that were brought up tonight. I didn't see a lot of note taking or writing down of like the concerns. So do you have a list of the concerns from the commission?
Tonight, I've taken probably 6 pages of notes.
Will you
And
address?
what do you plan, hang on a second.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
And do you plan to go back and try to renegotiate some of the points that we brought up, or, what is the plan going forward?
It will come back to the commission,
Yeah.
the Solid Waste Commission, and we will instruct Kevin more than likely that we'd like to open it back up in negotiations if that's what we elect to do. So again, I think we have enough points that's been brought up, yes.
That's all. We've been here for a while going about this, and we would just,
For the
like I asked them, earlier tonight on the first thing that we were talking about was to look at something for the Juvenile Justice Department.
Yes.
And so I expect when they go into their next meeting, that they are not going to just vote to move things along until they've addressed my concern. Does that make sense? And so
Yes.
that's what, I'm asking for some
That's
good
why we're
faith
here.
that,
That's why we're here.
we're gonna give you some feedback, and then you're not gonna say,
No.
and just, vote straight in. And I know you can only speak for yourself and one at a time, but that's that's, I just want to put the,
I'll speak as another member.
yes.
This is a huge amount of my time that I took up to be here tonight as well.
Mhm.
I didn't come here just to brush off your concerns.
Perfect, thank you.
If I wanted to do that, I would have showed up.
Well, I thought about not.
I thought about it too, I'll just be honest. There's a few times I was ready to quit.
That's all I'm asking for, is some more discussion, going back to them and saying, hey, these are the concerns we have, and then giving us some information. We
But if
talked to
they-
them, they said, we can do this, we can't do that.
It would also be extremely beneficial, though, we meet the second Tuesday of each month. If you all could have brought these concerns to us,
Sure.
to our meeting,
Makes sense.
these things could have already been resolved, and we wouldn't have sat here through a 3-hour meeting tonight.
Well, from what I've heard, that we wouldn't have done, I mean,
I don't know why you say that, Mr. Sutherland.
well, I mean,
I agree with Tammy. We look for input. I've talked to Gary, I've talked
can
to
you get us more
Dave
money?
before. Do what?
Can you get us more money? Can you get back the tipping fee? Can you improve
We
the
have to have
service?
something specific that you're asking for. Don't just say we want more money. You say, how can we reasonably
Okay,
negotiate?
can you raise our part from 10% to 15?
We
How
can
about
negotiate it.
I wish the closure would be accelerated.
So I think
Well,
if it were me, what I would do is go through some of the things, discuss with each other what are some specifics that, because you're right on some things. We've yelled out a lot of different things and said this and that, and because we're not always there in the meetings, there are certain bits of information, we don't have the whole piece of information to understand why something could happen and why something could not happen. So look through those and give some explanations to why some things, yes, we can negotiate, we can go from 5.5, we can try to get that up to 8, and that'll be our goal. And we're gonna, try to do that, and if there's something else, you say, no, we can't do that, and here's some of the reasons why, and, just kind of, let us just, continue the process a little bit if we could.
Well, we deeply, again, as I stated a while ago, we value your input. And it's not what I don't necessarily agree with all of it, to some extent, because I've been there.
Yeah, and I don't want to say to you, I mean, we've worked together and been, at least in this room together, many nights
Yes.
for many years. Or to you that you would just dismiss it, but I know you've worked on it hard, and sometimes when you get near the end, it's hard to dig in and say, no, it's easier to just say, okay, it's done and it's over, instead of going back and fighting a little more. That's all we're asking, is a little more
I
fight.
feel that this commission was at the end of our negotiation. I think we all discussed this in our meetings. We had went as far as we felt we could go, and that's why it come to you all. It's come to the other two stakeholders also. Now,
Have you been to them yet?
not yet.
Okay.
I think the message you're getting here is slow down, there's no rush off the cliff. Go back and take a look at some of these concerns.
We will.
we can do that.
I appreciate the way that Commissioner Tinker spoke and what he said. I really do appreciate the way he spoke to us and the way he spoke about this situation. And I want to thank you, sir.
Thank y'all.
This is the 15th meeting we've had on solid waste.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
in
Second
society.
that.
We got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying
If
aye.
y'all approve this
Any
contract, I would
opposed?
touch it with a
I
10-foot
didn't,
pole.
I didn't say that we're doing that.
Thanks, Bob.
Just said you